Guys, what the heck? What the hecky? What the hecky-ante? Do you see this? It is a rare day when I come across a mod for vanilla CK3 that turns my head and completely changes what it means to play the game for me. But after just a few minutes with this perspective, I seriously don't know if I can go back to regular CK3 again. If you like what you see, make sure to subscribe to this channel because I feature awesome Paradox games and mods like this all the time. This is Orthographic Perspective, a map mod for CK3 that does something nothing else does. In fact, it does a few things. It turns the regular 3D map of CK3 into something that flattens the game world and resembles an isometric layout. According to the modder itself, and I'll relay the information because it gets a bit technical, the mod does not actually change the projection. Instead, it lowers the game's field of view and pulls the camera away to compensate. This shortens the distance between the fore and background, flattening the image like a dolly zoom. Aside from lowering the FOV, the mod also implements the chasm shader by TerraPass from the CK3 modding co-op, used to complement the mod with steep cliffs and coasts and rivers. Beyond the chasms, lighting and borders have also been changed to make the map pop out more with sharper shadows and color. The result is a campaign map that looks completely different from any other, even total conversion maps, because the premise of the map itself has changed on a fundamental level. This no longer utilizes the foundations of lighting, FOV, or certain textures as the vanilla map, but is meant to create a completely different vision of CK3's map altogether. One of my favorite aspects is that things like mountain ranges, coastlines, rivers, and especially cities come so alive here. Thanks to everything from new lighting, shading, and perspective, cities and larger settlements now pop like never before. They remind me a bit of the old Age of Empires games actually, but with the best of both worlds, since they now actually look fairly realistic on scope and density as opposed to a random collection of buildings. The same goes for the terrain visuals, which no matter where you are, look sharper in a way, giving off a kind of contrasty, more colorful version of Imperator Rome's map. It's just so beautiful, I'm kind of lost for words, and I can sit for moments on end just staring at locations like Scandinavia with its snow-covered mountains and deep green forests, the English Channel where two powerful kingdoms meet, Italy with its bright mix of farmland, wetland, mountains, and the city of Rome, Egypt and the Levant with that transition from sand to the lush nature of the Nile, the towering mountain ranges and fertile lands of Persia and Mesopotamia, and my personal favorite, the Aegean, featuring the Achaean Mountains, the deep blue sea itself, and the Anatolian landscape, connected as they both are by the large city of Constantinople at the Bosporus. I mean, dude, just look at this. Seriously, I've never seen anything like this. Now I hear you. The devil on your shoulder is probably telling you something like, dude, I love it, but that perspective is kind of ruining it for me just a bit. Alright, I hear you. Lucky for you then, that this mod has a sub-mod, an alternative version with the exact same visual style, but with the regular vanilla perspective. Now, you're getting the best of both worlds, the CK3 experience you know and are used to, because hey, I get it, warping between two completely different perspectives can be jarring, with the purely visual innovations of this mod, including the new colors, lighting, and shading. Apparently, the perspective version actually demands a bit more from your rig as well, so if you are already struggling to run CK3 as well as you want, then this version is lighter on performance too. I'll admit, it is a bit tough for me to know exactly how to feel about this perspective change too. On one hand, I love it, but in a game as vast as CK3, it does take a bit of time to wrap your head around the changes. It also definitely does feel like a completely different vision of this medieval world. There's something about this perspective, exactly because it evokes that 90s or early 2000s vision of strategy game maps, that somehow, despite being exactly the same size, removes some of the sensation of scope. I don't know how else to say it, but it does play with your mind a bit. That might be my biggest reservation against it, even though I do love it so at the same time. Perhaps a perspective change would help. It would be interesting for one to see even more perspectives, perhaps not one as abrasive. That being said, the mod has a few technical issues at the moment, none of which is harmful to the gameplay at all, but which are a little annoying. The first is that while in this mid-zoom layer, where the political map shows up, is that the titles, due to not being tailored for this change, remain the same size. This makes it so that for especially smaller locations like Britain, or thinner places like Italy, it gets extremely crowded. Hopefully we can find someone who can shrink their sizes a bit when at that awkward zoom stage, because it just doesn't look fully right. Something else to be aware of, and this is just a perception thing, is that the world does feel stretched with this mod, so much so that it can throw you off a bit when entering it and when returning to regular CK3. Looking at it for the first time, you'll probably think something like, what the helly? But when you return to vanilla to look at something you used to know, you'll go, what the shelly? And suddenly, you don't know which perspective is best or which you prefer. I will say that I do think, for those who've seen my recent EU4 modlist compilation, that this perspective is in fact rather close to the one I found in Voltaire's Nightmare, so if you are familiar with that one, this might not be too much of a change honestly. But since this map is larger, meaning that it also includes landmasses like the Indian subcontinent, something weird happens. Europe looks just fine for some reason, but when reaching India, which in vanilla looks fairly alright I think, I just find that India in particular looks much too short, which is strange because the actual map projection has not been changed at all. When zooming down though, you do get the sense that India is actually massive, so you do only see that discrepancy from the top kind of, but that's something that messes with me at times. Something I do want to talk about in regards to this mod is that it does something I always wanted from CK3, but which I never got. A more realistic, or for the lack of a better word, more medieval, more contrasty and less cartoony tone. Because I truly think that this mod gives off that type of vibe and style. It's kind of what I miss from a lot of modern strategy games. That's not at all to say that CK3's regular map is ugly, in fact I think it's well made, but when coupled with the 3D characters and the more and more memey feel of events and playstyles, CK3 has gone a bit off the rails for me. In this way, at least with this new map, it gives me a sense of grounding, a sense of, I don't know, a clear difference and unique style. Indeed, like I alluded to before, it makes it look more like Imperator Rome, which is exactly the evolution CK3's map should have taken way back when. But do you want to hear one of the best parts? Since this mod is a pure perspective change of something other mods never change, it works with basically every total conversion mod that uses the vanilla CK3 map as a base. That means that if you want to play a mod like Fallen Eagle, this mod is completely compatible. However, I don't know the technicalities of it, but I assume it is tied to the vanilla map, because it does not currently work on its own with total conversion mods like Realms in Exile or Game of Thrones that completely change up the map. Perhaps someone will make them compatible, but for now, at least in my experience, neither the base or the graphic perspective mod nor the perspective-less version are compatible with anything that moves away from the vanilla map. I find this mod absolutely stunning and will definitely test out a campaign or two with it before I make up my mind on what to use moving forward, because this is potentially a dream come true, especially if some of the quirks can be ironed out. Let me know what you think of the mod in the comments, and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy what I do. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!